Hi, I'm Mike LaChapelle, and welcome back to Innovation by Design. This is Module 12 of the Business Model Canvas. Now, over years of using the Business Model Canvas, we've developed what we consider some best practices to help with clarity and understanding of the business model. In this module, we'll introduce you to the 6 best practices we teach. So let's get started. Practice number 1. Use color to separate customer segments. Using a different color for each of the identified customer segments allows you to see which part of the business model applied to which segment. Once the segments have been identified, start with one color and work out the business model for that segment. When you have a good take on that segment, start the next segment. Try to avoid jumping back and forth between segments. Where an element applies to more than one segment, we overlap the 2 colors, and that practice allows us to see which parts of the model apply to more than one segment. Also, if you wish to break out each segment into its own canvas, you will have a complete picture for each segment. Practice 2. Separating the as-is and the to-be. When documenting the current state business model, do not fall into the trap of including things that you want to do or are planning to do. It's very important to separate those ideas and put them on their own canvas. Now, when dealing with innovation or startups, it's best to separate the core, immediate things that need to be done and the longer-term direction or values. Again, separating these out and putting them on their own canvas. Practice 3. Distinguishing between fact and assumption. Now, we are most often hurt not by what we don't know, but by what we think we know that isn't true. It's vital for the success of business models to determine what you know is fact and what assumptions you are making about the world. Now, once you've identified these assumptions, you can define experiments to test the validity of those assumptions and the validity of the overall business model. Practice number 4. Design a business model with a story. It's not enough to understand each of the components of the business model individually. You should be able to see how each element in the model links with other elements to tell the story of how the business works. Now, this also serves as a check and balance that you have covered all the necessary elements in the business. For example, how you accounted for all the resources necessary to support the activities to build the value proposition, or for a particular customer segment. Practice number 5. Connect the building blocks. Now, this refers back to the golden triangle that we mentioned previously in the section on revenue streams. You should never have an orphan in the 3 elements of customer, value proposition, and revenue. For each idea in one of these areas, there must be corresponding entries in the other 2. Connecting each building block to another also serves as a check on the business model. By taking each block and understanding where it should be connected, it allows you to test the completeness of the overall model. Practice number 6. Different stories in separate canvases. When experimenting or prototyping different ideas for a model, it's a good practice to separate them onto different canvases. Putting multiple ideas on one canvas is likely to cause confusion, have missing components, or create noise, reducing the clarity of the model. In some cases, for example, not-for-profit businesses that are funded by grants, it's easier to understand the model by separating out the business model into the beneficiary customers and then a model for funding. Now, to summarize these thoughts, these 6 practices are intended as a guide to creating better, clearer, more effective business models. Use color for segments. Separate as-is and to-be. Distinguish fact from assumption. Design with a story. Connect the building blocks, and separate your stories.